Welcome to This Explainer. Today we're unpacking a really critical, data-driven roadmap for transforming Barrio Mugica over the next decade. If you follow urban development, you already know just how absolutely crucial the integration of this neighborhood is. We're going to focus squarely on the educational challenges. Specifically, what is it going to take to lift Barrio Mugica's next generation from marginality straight to the employability levels of fully integrated neighborhoods, right as we enter the AI decade of 2026 to 2036? Let's get into it. So, let's start with a foundational question about urban integration. Is it really just about paving roads, laying pipes, and, building houses? For the longest time, the focus has pretty much been exclusively on physical infrastructure. But the data we're exploring today argues something different. It tells us that while concrete is absolutely necessary, it's just not sufficient. The ultimate infrastructure of any thriving city, it's human capital. The 19th century Argentine leader, Domingo Faustino Sarmiento, famously said, "Man, people, nation, state. Everything is in the humble school desks." Over a century ago, the guy realized that true integration, the actual future of a nation, is built right there at the school desk. And you know what? That exact same principle applies perfectly to neighborhood integration today.
Here is our roadmap for This Explainer. We'll hit the human capital challenge, the current educational gap, thriving in the AI era, the hidden metric of success, managing the future today, and finally, the vision for 2036.
Section 1. The Human Capital Challenge, a tale of two futures. Right now, the youth in Barrio Mugica are facing incredibly high stakes. The decade of 2026 to 2036 will literally be won or lost based entirely on what happens to this incoming generation. Imagine a hypothetical young person in Barrio Mugica today. They're essentially standing at a crossroads with three competing economic pathways. Pathway 1 is the formal economy, getting an education, showing up on time, and building legal, marketable skills. Pathway 2 is subsidy dependence, relying on informal, intermittent work, and leaning on political intermediaries. And then there's Pathway 3, the antisocial economy. This one offers fast cash and status through criminal networks. So here is the kicker. The formal economy is literally competing head-to-head with criminal networks for the exact same talent pool. Section 2. The current educational gap. Where do we actually stand? To really grasp the severity of this crossroads, we need to compare Barrio Mugica to the integrated neighborhoods it shares a metropolitan economy with. Because remember, employers, they don't hire based on a zip code. They hire based on skills. The contrast in these numbers is, frankly, incredibly stark. If we look at the estimated 2025 adult secondary school completion rates, Barrio Mugica sits at just 31%. Compare that to Recoleta, which is up at 89%. That is a massive 58-point gap. Actually, right now, Mugica's educational profile looks a whole lot more like Villa Lugano did way back in the 1990s. And that educational gap, it fuels an immediate crisis we have to solve first. Looking at the population under 25, about 11% of the youth in Barrio Mugica are classified as Nini, meaning they neither study nor work. That translates to roughly 2,800 kids. To put that into perspective, that number alone is bigger than the entire youth population of many small towns. Section 3. Thriving in the AI era. But here's the thing, time isn't standing still. We have to prepare these students for the 2036 economy. It's going to be fundamentally different from what we knew 10 years ago. We are entering the decade of artificial intelligence. Basic routine skills, like recalling facts or standard everyday applications, are going to be heavily automated. So what exactly is left for human workers? Well, the highest cognitive levels. On Bloom's taxonomy, we're talking about levels 5 and 6. This means evaluating, judging, designing systems, and creating new value. The workers of 2036 absolutely must master these higher-order cognitive tasks so they can actually supervise AI rather than trying to, compete against it. And this is where the capability gap becomes glaringly obvious. Right now, estimates show that Barrio Mugica has only about 5 to 10% of its workforce operating at those critical levels 5 and 6. Compare that to 50 to 60% over in Recoleta. The neighborhoods that are going to grow economically in the next decade aren't necessarily the ones with the best physical infrastructure. No, they're the ones with the highest concentration of residents operating at these top cognitive levels. Section 4. The hidden metric of success. The behavioral secret. So how do we close this massive capability gap? It turns out it's not just about building more classrooms or handing out free laptops. It's about a fundamental psychological shift. This brings us to a really fascinating concept from psychology that acts as the hidden behavioral KPI for a neighborhood's success, the internal locus of control. Decades of research have shown us that the absolute strongest predictor of long-term success isn't some educational input, it's this specific belief system. It's the deep-seated belief that your decisions, your learning, and your effort dictate your future. Not luck, not politicians, and definitely not criminal organizations. We can clearly see the real-world impact of this mindset. A culture of survival is driven by an external locus of control. It looks outward for solutions, depends on subsidies, seeks immediate cash, and totally avoids risk. On the flip side, a culture of entrepreneurship is driven by an internal locus of control. It believes effort actually matters. It delays gratification to build real skills and solve complex problems. Ultimately, the rivalry between these two cultures will dictate the entire future of Barrio Muga. Currently, if we try to index this, the estimated internal locus of control score for Barrio Mujica sits at just 45 out of 100. For some context, Recoleta sits at a 90. The true goal of urban integration isn't just to replicate Recoleta's income profile, it's to replicate its behavioral profile. We need an environment where people genuinely believe their hard work will pay off in the formal economy. Section 5. Managing the future today. To change that behavioral number, policymakers need a totally new way of measuring success. Enter the cat whiskers system, or bigotes de gato. Think about it. Just like a cat uses its whiskers to sense obstacles in the dark before physically crashing into them, urban planners and educators have to use predictive sensors to navigate social development. We urgently need to detect behavioral and educational shifts before they spiral into irreversible crises. Think about the difference in how governments manage things. Most operate by looking firmly in the rearview mirror. They look at lagging indicators like high school dropout rates, unemployment figures, or addiction rates. But by the time those numbers spike, the damage is already done. We have to start looking through the windshield at leading indicators. If a child has solid third-grade reading fluency today, that is a leading indicator that they're going to graduate high school tomorrow. An increase in the locus of control score today predicts a drop in criminal recruitment tomorrow. It's a total game changer. Section 6. The vision for 2036, convergence. If we manage these leading indicators correctly, steering the ship through the windshield instead of the rearview mirror, what does the finish line actually look like in 2036? The target here isn't some abstract utopia, and it definitely isn't to magically turn Mugica into Recoleta overnight. The realistic goal is convergence with integrated neighborhoods like Villa Lugano. Consider these benchmarks for 2036, pushing adult secondary completion from 31% to 70%. Slashing that Nini rate down to under 5%, and massively scaling up graduates from workforce development programs like CEDEL to over 17,500. If they can hit those numbers, Barrio Mugica's profile completely transforms. Ultimately, the success of this entire massive transformation hinges on one specific thing. The ultimate KPI is creating residents who are highly employable and entrepreneurially capable. They need to be able to independently generate value, communicate effectively, and seamlessly adapt alongside artificial intelligence, instead of being displaced by it. I want to leave you with this final critical thought. What we are really watching is a race. It's a race between population growth and human capital growth. The most important construction project of the next decade in Barrio Mugica isn't made of concrete. It is the human mind. Will a child entering preschool in 2026 graduate in 2038 with the high-level skills to supervise AI and build a thriving neighborhood? Or will they be left with the despair to abandon it? Thank you for joining me for this explainer, and as always, keep questioning the data.